4, 3, 2, 1. Boom shakalaka. We back for another session of Going the Distance live. We are inside 6 days from my favorite time of the year, Christmas. It's almost here. Anxiety's killing me. Even though I talked a bit about it last week, and how it's kind of a crazy time of year, and the pressures and everything of it. I still love it. Couple of quick shout outs. One, it is the gift buying season. So don't forget, your boy's got a book out. It's on Amazon.com or in Fleet Feet Sports here in High Point. If you are a local, and on Amazon.com, pick up your copy for that special person in your family that you love and care about. They'll thank you for it. It's got some good lessons in it, I would say, but then again, I'm biased. I think I did write it, or at least for a part of it. I think that was a bad joke. Anyways, yeah. I'm going to tackle a sort of hot topic tonight. It's kind of been brewing for months and months now. Thanks to our current political situation, political environment, however you want to call it, whatever words you want to use to describe it. Healthcare for millions of America has been under assault for the last almost 2 years now. Really longer than that. There was the Affordable Care Act that was brought about, about 7 years ago now, 8 years ago now, that provided health care and protection for people with pre-existing conditions. Brought a lot of people a lot of relief. And pretty much since its inception, it has been something that's very polarizing. Has once again, like I have said numerous other times I believe even on here, there's certain things that I don't think should be right and left issues. And I think healthcare is ultimately one of those, because it's something that will affect every single person at some point in time in your life. You're born and you're going to die. Most of those things happen in the hospital for most people. So that's at least 2 trips that you're going to make in your lifetime. Not to count any time that you might get sick. You might be in a catastrophic accident. You might break a leg. You might have allergies. You might have whatever it is. Most people are going to need to see the doctor. In fact, the access to being able to see a doctor is one of the things that makes something like the United States and other first world countries so great to live in. The problem in this country is that it has become, over the years, incredibly expensive for people to afford. And I want to start off by saying right now, I am certainly not against people making money, people being well off, people working hard and being able to provide for themselves, provide for their family, provide for their loved ones, provide for future generations of their people. I am not against that. But the majority of people that are making a lot of money in healthcare aren't the people that you interact with. It is the heads of Insurance corporations, it's the head of the hospital, not your doctor. Your doctor's making solid money. And the idea being that, doctors make more money because it requires special schooling, which requires, 8 or 10 years of training if they're going into specialties and stuff. That requires a lot of money. And so they need to make money, and you want the best doing that. So they need to be compensated for that. And I certainly understand that. It's the greed that has entered the system and allowed the people, all of us consuming the healthcare, to be the ones that suffer, and our access to it, our ability to pay for it. I believe right now the last statistic I saw is somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 or 65% of Americans can't come up with an additional $500 right now for a medical emergency, and that's terrifying. It's something that speaks near and dear to my heart, obviously, because I do have a rare condition. I do have a rare disorder. If you're not aware of that by now, I do have an autoimmune disease, form of vasculitis called granulomatosis polyangiitis, and at times it costs a lot of money to keep me alive. And I realize that the care that I need as an individual and other rare disease patients is different than what the common person needs, than even like what my girlfriend needs, who goes to the doctor maybe once or twice a year. And I'm getting hot, so we're about to. This topic's already boiling my blood. So it's something that actually I think somebody just turned on the heat in this room. But it's preventing people's access to it. It's preventing people's access. The current system is preventing people being able to afford it and get good care, and that hurts society as a whole. When people are not healthy, it hurts society. It means people can't go to work. It means people don't take care of themselves. It means they can't work as much, and it puts a drain on our society. And then when people can't afford stuff and they do go, then people can't pay. It just further drains the system. So last Saturday, I woke up to the news that a judge in the state of Texas has struck down and said that Obamacare is quote unquote unconstitutional or whatever. So he struck it down, and in that is something obviously that speaks directly to me and a lot of the people that I represent as an ambassador for people with rare diseases, as an ambassador for the Vasculitis Foundation. Obviously, we all have pre-existing conditions somewhere, depending on what your insurance company classifies as a pre-existing condition. You're looking at somewhere around a third or a fourth of people in the United States have pre-existing conditions. So it's not just people like me. It's not just somebody with some rare disease that nobody can pronounce. Something like pregnancy, which happens to a large number of women in this country, can be classified as a pre-existing condition. Allergies, asthma, things that are very, very common that a lot of people deal with that aren't serious. But can obviously, if you have allergies or asthma, some of those things can become life-threatening. Now it's terrifying because some of you may or may not remember what the insurance situation was like before we had the Affordable Care Act, but it costs a lot, and they could deny you coverage for any of those things. It would have been extremely difficult for me to purchase my own insurance under the previous models. It would have affected my lifestyle. I would not be able to do what I do now if it wasn't for something like that. Luckily, those protections have kept the cost down for me to where I can afford to get health coverage. In fact, I do know some people, and there's some patients in some areas that have actually had to do away with their own coverage because they can't afford to even pay what they're having to pay every month because of needing to afford plans that cover things. So they've just realized that they can just try to pay on the services they needed and work stuff out with their doctors, which is terrifying. And it's just something that's extremely frustrating. It's something that like I said at the beginning of the show, it shouldn't be about where you stand on the political divide. And one of the reasons why I think the options that have been presented with us in recent year and a half, 2 years don't work. The quote unquote free market and capitalism don't work with healthcare. For instance, if you live in, and I'm just going to explain why it doesn't really work and why it's never worked and why we, the people that are consumers of it, continue to be the ones that catch the brunt of all of it, and it affects our lives. If you live in a small town like I did in Boone, North Carolina, there's one hospital. You have one specialist of it's a large enough town that there's a specialist of most of the, you can find a foot doctor, you can find a orthopedic, you can find a, gastrointestinal doctor, or, whatever you might need to find. There wasn't somebody to take care of my condition, so I continued to have to travel for the 7 or 8 years that I spent in that town. I continued to have to travel to see my doctor, which often at times became an issue because my doctor was in numerous of my doctors are still in a different state, which gets tricky when they're trying to write me prescriptions because they can't write them across state lines sometimes for insurance approval. So it has turned our insurance companies, which are private organizations that are only concerned about increasing their profitability. Yes, they do make some fantastic drugs, but at the end of the day, they are a corporation and they are trying to make more money. And like I said, I'm not against people trying to make money, but when people's life and health is on the line, it is terrifying that insurance companies, and then if your insurance doesn't cover what you might need for life-saving care, you're up to negotiating with the hospital or the people that are providing you care, or in some cases, like with many rare disease patients, if you can't afford the $15 or $20 or $30 or $80,000 Medicaid life-saving treatment, you can apply to get, basically a grant to, or hardship to get the treatment, and that turns those insurance companies and medical companies into death panels. And if I hear one more person right now say something about how they're terrified of a public option of healthcare because it would turn the government into a death panel, which is not the case, because what it would allow is everybody to get the care that they need, because nothing would be prevented from anybody getting. Whereas now we literally have private companies are death panels right now. And there are people, and I've known people and read about people, and you can go look it up. And I deal with patients on a daily basis all around the world. And there are people that have been denied treatment for their condition by either their insurance companies or the drug companies, and they have died. And it is terrifying, absolutely terrifying, that we as a group of people, because what I continually say all the time is what separates humans from the other animals on this earth is the ability to care for those with less, right? In the animal kingdom, that a jaguar wouldn't take care of a special needs jaguar, right? They're just going to leave it for dead. And that's what makes us uniquely human right now is caring and taking care and using the resources and our knowledge to take care of and figure out things that affect all of us, and take care of each other. So it shouldn't, like I said, it's unfortunately become something that we've allowed to divide us as a country about the right way to approach it, instead of sitting down in a room and figuring out what is best for everybody. We've allowed ourselves to be brainwashed by people that have money on the line and not what's best for all of us. Like I said, the public option is something that would drive costs down for every single one of us, everybody. I love to use the great analogy like Netflix. Most of you on here probably have Netflix, and it's relatively inexpensive. They have upwards of, I think they're really kind of shady on their numbers, but you're looking at about 100 million subscribers to to Netflix, paying anywhere from $10 to $15 a month, depending on what services you need or require, whether you still get the mail-in DVDs. I assume that's still part of it. And the number of screens that you want to have available. You can pay anywhere from whatever, $9.99 or $10.99, whatever it is a month. And so that gives Netflix, I don't know if you can do the math, 100 million times $10 is a assload of money. And they've been able to create their own content, make their own movies, buy all this content, and everybody that's using that platform has access to everything on there. Whereas right now we are, and you have a rating system, and you can see what's good and what's bad. And when they have bad movies or shows don't do well, they cancel them, and they bring us new material. Like right now, we as the people of the United States and people in this country, that we don't have the negotiating power. We don't have the power in this situation to give something really a thumbs down, because like I said earlier, you might not have access to go to another doctor. The person that you need to see might not be covered by your insurance. It might not be covered by, it might not be something that you can physically get to because it is so far away. You might not be able to afford to get there. Like there's a lot of patients that have rare diseases that have to travel to the Mayo Clinic or the Cleveland Clinic or places like that. And they can be, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours away, or they can be, plane flights, and they can only afford to get there once a year, maybe. So then they have to deal with a local doctor that's going to try to administer their care. And then sometimes those local doctors don't listen to the doctors that are true specialists. So it becomes this whirlwind of a situation, and ultimately the patient suffers. And it is something that, like I said, I deal with these issues, and I hear patients talk about this on a daily basis. And I also talk to people in a lot of other countries that deal with a much more efficient system. And I think we've forgotten that, like, the government should be for the people, we the people in this democracy. And I think we need to kind of take that back, because we've allowed special interest groups and people that don't have our interest in mind anymore control our access to stuff, and we're the ones that are suffering. And that's what's maddening, because it's really not a Republican or a Democrat thing. They're both doing it. They're both doing it, and they're both screwing all of us. And yes, there are good people in Congress. I'm not saying that there's not people that are there that are trying to fight for the right thing and fight to get us doing, but they're beholden to all these people, and they're beholden to the people that put them there, because of the way that this stuff is, because of the way politics works. They are beholden to these special interest groups, to these lobbyists that are paid millions and millions of dollars by large corporations to influence those politicians to make the policies that are best for them. Because if they don't, then those lobbyists will then take those corporations' money that they are putting into super PACs and put that money behind another candidate. And we aren't the ones that are picking them anymore. And it's frustrating, and it's maddening, because when you look at continual polls that come out and you see that the will of the people is 60 or 70 or 80% on a subject, and it's something that they won't even address, they won't even look at, they won't even sit down and try to hash out. And when it's something like another hot topic right now, just throwing it out there, not going to give much thought to it, but it's like marijuana legalization. It's something that I think 9 or 10 states have right now. Some other 10 or 15 or 20 have some form of medical or whatever, but they're not addressing it on the federal level at all. They're just completely ignoring it. And we've shown over the last 5 or 10 years that the majority of the country is feeling a certain way about it, but they will not even address it. And that's what they're doing. And they're trying, like I said, the things that they are putting forward and they're shoving down our throats are not good for us. And I don't like to like this on here. I like to try to keep this fun and keep this positive and talk about real things. But this is a real thing that's affecting millions and millions of Americans and millions of people, and affecting the community that I represent and the community that I'm a part of. And I just feel like we need a voice of reason, and I feel like that's gone. And when I was reading about the dismantling of all these protections for us. On Saturday morning, I got really, really depressed. I was really, really sad, and it was sad for most of the weekend because I'm sad because we've let our we've let half of our country or more get talked into some things that just aren't good ideas, where there's no longer a voice of reason that people can listen to and not be jaded by or feel that that person is picking one side of the fence or the other or trying to pull one over on them. There's no longer anybody that we can trust as a collective group of people that all live on the same patch of dirt. And it drives me crazy. It legitimately drives me crazy because nobody can listen. Nobody can listen effectively anymore without ending up in their own missile silos, like or echo chambers. I mean, like hopefully nobody's ending up in a missile silo. That would be terrifying. But we're all guilty of it. We are all guilty of ending up in our own echo chambers, listening to the same thing. Heck, the news app on your phone knows what you like. It knows what you click on, the type of articles that you click on, the things that you read about all the time. So it's going to push those things to the top. So you're never going to, it's hard unless you have a really wide range of things that you're interested in. Both sides of the fence. It's hard to get stuff even through your news, whether it's news here on Facebook or whether it's news, like you're reading the news thing on Twitter or your Google app or your Flipboard app or whatever app it is. It's all based on the things if you're clicking on it. If you got enough habits of clicking enough things that lean a certain way, it's going to push content towards you. And rightfully so, because that's how those algorithms work. It's not the company's fault. It's just how those algorithms work. So it's promoted, a huge distrust for a lot of people of things on that might be on either side, and so you don't ever see them, and it's scary because there's no longer a voice of reason in this country. There's no longer that somebody can listen to without wanting to call them, a partisan hack or a shill or a troll or whatever it is, and I don't think that I can be it. Certainly not famous enough. I don't have a trustworthy face. But I think we need to find somebody, and I think somebody needs to stand up and speak for those people and speak for everybody, because like I said, this is something that healthcare is something that affects every single person that's ever been born. And if we all pay into the same system, if we all work through the same system, it's going to make it better for everyone. We're trying to, I feel like every day when we wake up, we're with the news and things that are happening, and you feel like you see the two dystopian type futures that could happen. You have, on one sense, if you listen to some people talk and hear some people talk and hear incredibly smart and brilliant people and the things that they're working on and the science that's being done and the, working towards Mars or, coming up with new treatments and dealing with stuff like CRISPR, which is, editing genes and, potentially being the thing that cures every illness and every disease, and thinking about how, and the automation of everything and robots and Elon Musk launching Teslas in outer space just because he can. Like, you think about those things, you're like, wow, civilization's really moving forward fast. You think about even just like this didn't exist 10 years ago, like a good, I'm like butt dialing somebody now. Luckily that's not a real telephone number. That didn't even exist 10 years ago. And now we're all glued to them. It's any free moment that we have. And you think, wow, where could this be? Could this be some sort of Star Trek type future where we're an interplanetary species and we travel all around the solar system or the universe, and you figure all this stuff out, and, people are studying black holes. We're launching a probe into the sun to figure out more about how, the sun's rays can affect our, like the grid here that we all live and die by right now, that we all are attached to, that for our sense of well-being, because, as I found out during the hurricane, a couple of days without power really makes you appreciate the things that we do have. Not that I needed that. I understood that. I've been without power numerous times in my life. But it's just it's a little reminder, right? But then on the other hand, you see the shift, the deregulation of stuff. You see people not having access to stuff. You see people not being able to afford stuff that's life-saving treatments. And you see our economy not working for a lot of people. You see the economy of the world potentially going to crash again. And we wonder, why do we keep going through this cycle? And they say, well, it's part of the cycle. But like, all right, shouldn't we be smart enough to fix the cycle? We created this cycle. Like, we could figure some way to make this not happen. But there's people that are winning and losing every time one of these cycles happens. And maybe those people that continue to win might be the ones that continue to push that cycle all the time, because it allows them to keep winning at that. But that's besides the point. You just see these further gaps happening, and you see those people that are there's more and more people becoming more and more disenfranchised. And you see that. I think you saw that in 2016. You saw that with the election of our current president. People were mad. People were frustrated. And people wanted change. They wanted somebody that was going to shake up the system. They wanted somebody that why they thought it was him is, maybe something that some of us don't understand, but you understand people being mad. I understand people being frustrated, because I'm certainly frustrated right now. And there's a lot of us that are, because we're not just frustrated, we're scared. And we're terrified that our access to something that has been allowed. Like, for instance, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast or not before. The medication Rituxan, which I received 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 10 infusions of in the last year and a half, in cycles of 4 and then 1 and 1. At the cost to me, or my insurance and everything, just for that bag alone, is $15,000. Now, it is a very, very expensive biological drug that has only recently been approved for more things, but it was originally invented for rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, or originally lupus and then moved to rheumatoid arthritis. And then they realized it might have potential to affect people with my form of vasculitis. So that is a medication that if it were part of a normal capitalistic market, like it was at the mall, I could shop around and go find a deal on it. Like, or if I could log on Amazon and have some shipped to my house for me. But that's unfortunately not how the healthcare system works. There's one, maybe 2 places here in town that will administer it. It obviously is still under patent, so it cannot be, dealt to other people. That medication costs $15,000 a bag. Now, like I said, it took a lot of expensive technology to design that product. A lot of R&D went into it. But it's also at this point in time about 15 years old, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was early 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, somewhere in there when it was invented. And prices only increased for it over time as more people have needed it, ironically. Demand and their ability to make it has not decreased, but they've charged a lot more. They could, that bag cost of drug right now, with everything that they're, with the technology having, with it, like I said, being about 15 years old, they can produce that bag somewhere in the neighborhood of, $200. So if they sold it for markup, like a classic markup, if the hospital sold it to the consumer for what would be considered a classic markup, you would be looking at somewhere, I don't know, the high side $1,000, the low side $500. You could probably find it on eBay somewhere for $250, maybe even less, if somebody was trying to get rid of a bunch of it. But that's not how it works. There's only one place in town I could get it. Some people don't even have places in town that can get it, and they do have to travel. So they know they know that it's something that I need. Insurance companies know that it's something I need. So that by the time it ends up in my hands, when I were in my veins, I should mean, because it's not in my hands. Can't touch the bag. It's got a little chemotherapy do not touch symbol on the bag, which I always find funny and ironic when the people that are handling all of it have to put on all this like crazy, like hazmat type suits to handle it, but then it's going in my blood, so it's really, I don't know. It's always ironic, I think, that they treat it like it's so dangerous, but yet it's going in my body. But whatever, I get it. It's probably something you don't want on your skin. So, anyways, by the time it gets to me, it costs me it costs me $15,000 if I don't have insurance. Now, obviously, insurance pays for some of it. You can apply for special programs to the maker of the drug that could potentially reduce the cost further. But then once again, those aren't available to everybody. If you make too much, you make too little money, like they can deny a lot of that too as well. So it's a jungle gym. And then that doesn't count the time that you sit in the chair, the pre-meds that they give you, and how the hospitals are allowed to charge you ridiculous amounts of money for something like 2 Benadryl. I believe one time I was looking at my itemized receipt and I got charged $50 for 2 Benadryl. And the Tylenol they gave me, I think, where I was charged like $20 for 2 of those too. So like, it's like, it's just gross and disgusting. And we've all been bystanders in this as this has happened. And it's our hard-earned money that so many of us are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week to earn and provide for our families, while other people are allowed to be greedy. Everybody, the majority of us are working for somebody, right? Very few of us work for ourselves. Very few of us own corporations. So we're helping other people constantly make money. We don't have things that are ours. We're helping somebody else make more money than we are. And then we go somewhere and we're trying to get health care, and those people are gouging us too. So we're just all stuck in this cycle where we all feel like we're getting taken advantage of. And that's where I understand the frustration. That's where I won't understand people wanting to blow the system up. And that's why I do understand that people are slowly but surely like waking up to this. And we are, I think, in the middle of, my generation obviously didn't live through the civil rights movement. And the women's right movement before that. And, and then the issues with slavery and, things going further back into our country than that. Like, each generation's kind of had their thing. And I think that this will be my generation's thing. And if I can be a small voice and a part of that, and just opening people's eyes, because it becomes something that, like I said, it's become so polarizing. It's become so difficult to talk about. And it's something that I continue to try to read on all the time so that I understand some things, so that when people have questions, when people feel like they're being attacked, and I'm not attacking you because of the view that you have about how your party or your team thinks that it should be fixed. We're humans and we can have a discussion. There's a lot of people, some of my best friends, we look at things differently, but we can have discussions about it and see things from people's perspectives and why they might understand that, or have an understanding about something that you don't, and it allows you to fix it or change your mind. And that's, I think that's why I kind of like say that at the end of the podcast every week, is like, go out into the world and read something that might you might be confronted with, and might have to, question why you believe something. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to change your mind, but it might mean that you have a better understanding of other people and the lives and what they go through and on a daily basis just to survive, because that's really it. So many of us are just trying to survive. And while we're just trying to survive, we just continually feel like we're being kicked and beaten down, and we're tired. We are really, really tired. Because we don't have power, and we don't feel like we have a voice, and we don't, we feel marginalized. So we need to take some of our power back. And I hope this conversation is something that I can continue to have with more people, and anybody that's willing to listen. And I think one of the big steps, and I know that it won't probably come to fruition because the people we have in power know it's a bad system. They know the system's rigged, and they're part of it. And very few of them are trying to do some things to fix the rigged system. There are some good people out there on both sides of the aisle. They're trying to fix the system. There is a bill that I've heard about that I think, from my rudimentary understanding of how things work and how the political system work, which I've had to unfortunately become a student of, because of caring so much about my health care. I had to go back and learn, like, how did we get here? How do we get to the point where 60 or 65% of people can't afford a $500 hospital bill? Like, because it wasn't always that way. So I went and looked, and basically we've been walked all over, and we've been walked all over and been told to smile and lay there and take it while we're being walked all over, and just gone, yes, sir, while they, pour hot ashes all over your body. That's basically what our Congress has done to the majority of Americans in this country, and that's why they're frustrated. So, when you do see something like, there's a bill, I do believe, that may or may not get introduced in the House of Representatives in the new year. It's called, I think, HR 1, which would turn elections over to public funding. It's the publicly funding of elections, and get rid of these super PACs and things like Citizens United, and the things that have allowed special interest groups and large corporations to take the power away from the people to elect the people that they want to represent them. It would end gerrymandering on both sides, because both sides of the aisle are equally as bad. I believe the last statistic I saw on all the gerrymandering stuff, which has hit my own home state here in North Carolina, very hard. We've come under scrutiny from the Supreme Court and from Congress. And then you look at the things that we've been in the news for recently, as far as a potential election fraud. You start trying to digest these things, and, it ends gerrymandering on both sides, because I think one of the articles I was reading, I think it's something like 75 to 80% of Congress are safe seats. They're because of gerrymandering and because of areas, they've become seats that will not be challenged from somebody of the opposite party, because of the way they've been gerrymandered. And at that point in time, then the only people they're under siege from is somebody that's more extreme than them, more extreme on their views. And that's why we have some of the fanatics that we do have there. And when that's allowed to happen, those special interest people know that. And of course, Congress wants to fight to keep their power. Nobody likes to give up their power. It gives all there's a reason why there's so many well-off people up there in DC. I mean, lobbying pays lots and lots of money. That's why a lot of politicians, that was one of the things that even came up recently that I was all for, that like Trump even talked about it, like making it be 2 or 5 years or something until a congressman can become a lobbyer. And, that this bill would go a long way towards fixing things like that. It would be making our little democracy, what's left of it, right now, a little more ours again, and give us that back, because very, very slowly since the 1950s or 1960s, after World War II, after the Great Depression, and then after World War II and the stimulus that came from that, more and more people, this current economy has not been working for. And like I said, we've all been slowly, bit by bit, they've just been taking our marbles and not giving them back, not sharing. And we're getting walked all over, and you can feel that. You can feel that in the country. You can feel that anytime you read on Twitter. Anytime you had to try to have these conversations out in public, people are frustrated everywhere. Whether you're a coal miner in West Virginia or a executive in Palo Alto at a tech company. People are angry. People are frustrated. Um, and they want the system to work for them. So, um, sorry if this is not what you signed up for tonight. But I can't be silent about this stuff kind of any longer. It's something that's affects too many of us. And like I said, with the stripping of the protections of things with pre-existing conditions, that affects 1 out of 3 of you. And that, uh, you know, like I said, it's somewhere between, depending on what private company is paying for you to your access to healthcare, anywhere between 50 and 100, 50 to 100 million people of a country that's 300 million. And that's 1 out of 3, that's 1 out of 3. And it doesn't care whether you live in a red state or a blue state, who your parents were, what area of town you grew up in, what education you have. It does not care. And that's why it should be something that brings everybody together and allows us to kind of heal some of the wounds, I think, that have happened over the last several years. Mary Frances, what's up? Late to the party, we are discussing healthcare and the dismantling of the protections for, potentially 100 million Americans. So if there's any comments, I'm going to look. All right, I hear you loud and clear. It wasn't for my medical insurance. I would be medically in debt for life, even when the insurance is taking a hit on my wallet. Yeah, I mean, I owe so many people so much money. I get phone calls nearly on a daily basis from collection agency. And the thing is it's not even because I'm not paying on some of them. It's because some of them, I had a debt collector that found me the other day about a $25 bill from a lab appointment from 3 years ago that I never got the bill for. So it's like I keep pretty good records of where everything's supposed to be at and who I owe what, but and that ended up at a debt collector. And some big ones have ended up, some small ones have ended up, but when it costs you, I think I totaled it up at the end of 2017. So at the end of this year, at the end of the year last year, it was over my medical expenses. Pre-insurance was well over $160,000 to keep me alive. And it could have been much worse. There was no real long hospital stays in there. So, I mean, heck, if you just fall or slip and break your arm and end up in the hospital, I mean, you can spend $5,000 and not even blink and not even be there overnight. D, I have GPA also. Thank you for being a voice. We're in such a vulnerable state right now with health insurance. It's frightening. That's what I said. It is frightening is the right word. Frightening and a lot of stress. No wonder so many people are on anti-anxiety medications and stuff, because we're constantly stressed about everything, as I said, because nobody's got ownership in anything anymore. But I've said my piece for it tonight. I'm going to continue to do more of these to try to explain some of this more. This was kind of a rough shot in the dark. A lot of notes that may or may not have hit. I'll have to go back and look. Actually, I don't know that I hit any of it. Actually, I think I had to have. That was sarcasm. This was just like we'll end with a funny story. So, I've had to give a few talks or speeches or acceptance speeches or things of that nature in my life. Yeah, Mary Frances, we talked about Rituxan a little while ago. I guess you'll have to go back and listen to it. But I explained the breakdown of what the drug cost to make and what they could sell it to us for, if you were buying Rituxan like you would buy a pair of shoes at the mall. But we don't have that option, so it costs us 15 grand a bag. Story. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. I do this thing when I have to talk about something. I have to give a speech, give a talk, which I like to do. Shocking, I know, right? Me talk, yeah. Nah, not at all. I do this thing where I'll plan out what I write, and then generally I get up there and never look at it. And that all kind of came to a head about a year and a half ago when I was at the Nord Rare Impact Awards, and wrote out all the people I wanted to thank. Had a nice little thing, left it in my hotel room. Realized it about 5 or 10 minutes before I had to go up. So then I very, very quickly tried to jot down the people and the things that I wanted to discuss in the brief amount of time they give you before a fat guy in a thong chases you off stage, or whatever they did to play you off. Actually, if it had been a fat guy in a thong, I would probably just continue to talk and wait for him to come out. But because just the comic value in that would have been great. But anyways, I wrote some notes up in my phone real quick. I was like, oh, it's new age now. Like I've seen some of these people come up there with tablets or whatever. They had their little notes jotted down on or whatever. So I'm pretty sure I'd written mine on like a napkin or some little sheet of paper in the hotel or whatever. And so I put my phone out and I pull up the notes section, turn it on, start talking, black out, try to figure out how to land whatever I was talking about, because I realized I was, of course, way off topic. And then in a panic, looked down and was like, I don't have time to stand here and read to see whether or not I've hit all these. So I'm just going to have to land this plane and say good night, thank you, or however I ended it. Stepped off stage and still have no clue whether or not I said or thanked the appropriate people. So I should probably get better at reading my notes. But for me, writing things out a lot helps. It helps me memorize them. It helps solidify stuff in my brain. So I most likely actually covered all of this in some form or another. Now, whether it was in the nice order I wrote out, probably not. But anyways, you guys have been great. I love you all. You know that. If you got questions about this, if you want to learn more, I'm happy to talk. Shoot me a message, shoot me a DM, slide into my inbox, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, shoot me a text, however you want to communicate. Whether you want to comment on this, we can have a discussion right here, right now, in the comment section. We can do that. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to listen to other people's points of view and why they feel they shouldn't have to be a part of something like we've talked about. So I just want to change people's minds because I just see so many people right now that they're pulling for something or don't understand something that's not in their own best interest. And I want there to be a voice of reason. So until that voice is heard, I'm just going to keep running my damn mouth because, well, I like it and I think it's important. So, guys, you've been absolutely fantastic. I love you all so very much. Next time we see each other, we'll be 364 days away from Christmas again. So, everybody traveling for the holidays, please be safe. Enjoy the time with your loved ones because you never know when you might be the last time with them. So, this just took another downturn. Sorry. No, enjoy your time with your loved ones. The holidays are special time. Whatever whatever your holiday religious affiliation is, it's a special time to be with the people that you care about. So take advantage of that time, and laugh and yell, maybe cry, party, and be merry. Till next week, guys. We'll see you on the other side of Christmas. Love you.